missing someone.
Okay, so it's time to start on the Corsa project. There's one thing that I need to do before we can get started on doing any engine work whatsoever. As many of you that own Corsas or have had Corsas in the past will have experienced, I'd imagine, this car suffers with the wet footwells, more so on the driver's side than the passenger side, but I'm going to do both and fix both just for like my peace of mind. The driver's side's pretty bad. When you push down on the carpet you get a nice squelch of water come up. The passenger side doesn't seem to have anything there, maybe it's been previously fixed, but I'm going to fix it anyway just because at least then I know I've done it, and if it leaks it's my fault and not someone else's. So we're going to get tackling that today. I'm going to do sort of a fairly in-depth video. There is a few of them online that are pretty good already, but I'm going to do my own version of it because I've done one before but it wasn't very detailed. I didn't go the whole way either, I didn't take out the brake servo or anything. So I'm going to go a bit further today and tackle this job. Now that it's winter, we're going to get a lot of rain, we're going to get a lot of snow, and these things are going to add up and they're just going to cause more issues in the future. The carpets and the seats are already starting to get a bit of mould on them because the car's been sitting for sort of 3 or 4 months. So it's something I'm going to have to tackle. Then we can dry it out, and then mould will be kept to a minimum. So that is what we're going to tackle today. Okay, so as we're looking at the engine, driver's side, passenger side, I'm going to start on the driver's side because that's probably a little bit more complicated, a few more things to take off. So we'll start with that, get that done, and then we can worry about this one afterwards. So essentially, you can see someone's been in here before actually, on mine. If you can see all that putty and gummy stuff in there, someone's actually tried to seal this one before and just obviously didn't do a great job. They've smeared it absolutely everywhere in the hopes to stop the leak. But essentially there's usually you'll be able to see a line that goes all the way around here, like a sort of a seal that goes all the way around. And essentially what you're doing is you're sealing that off with some sort of black silicone sealant, because what happens is it cracks and that lets in water. So we need to get everything around here off so we can get better access to this. That means the wipers, washer bottle, master cylinder, everything that you see here needs to come off so we can get access to this. So we're going to start off by removing the wipers themselves. They've got a little cap that just covers the nut, and then there's a 13mm there which I'm just going to take off. Same on the other one. If we go ahead and shut the bonnet again, just briefly, what you should be able to do with these is if we bring them up so they stand up like so, and then just give them a wiggle backwards and forwards, it should just pop off like that. Sometimes they're a little bit seized, but they shouldn't be too bad to get off. There's one. Same with this one, wiggle, and off it pops. Okay, so now the wipers are off, I'm going to start taking off some of this plastic trim. Got a little piece here that just pulls out, which covers the battery wires. Stick that down there. You can see my battery's already been taken out because it's on charge. Take your battery out if you haven't already. That'll make it easier later on. And once you've got it out, you can pull these wires onto the engine, like so. And there should be a screw there, but there isn't one. And there should also be a screw here, but there isn't one. So someone's been in here before and hasn't replaced the screws, which are annoying. But once you remove those two, this should just pull out. You may just have to lift this trim piece up here, and this should pull out. you go. Now don't forget it's attached on the bottom, the washer jet. So just free that up. Okay, that piece is now off. Same to this side. This bit's held in by a T20 screw. So I'm just going to undo that. And then this should just pull out. Again, these are attached on the back, so just be careful. Just pull this, there's like a little clip here. You just pull that back and push the washer jet up. So the next thing I'm going to remove is the wiper motor with the mechanism. It's held in by an 8mm there and an 8mm that side. Just going to whip them off. Take the electrical connector off as well, don't forget about that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the washer bottle now. It should just be a case of pulling up on it, just held in. You can then just go ahead and pull the washer motor out of the back itself, like so. And then the whole thing just pulls out. That's where the washer motor goes in there. It just pulls out like so. I'm just going to sit that down the side. And as you can see, we've got a lot more access already, just by removing those few things. I'm going to go ahead and remove the pollen filter housing. I'm also going to remove all this as well, just to get even better access. But you can see where someone's been previously. They've really done a hack old job of that. So it's going to be a lot of fun to scrape off all this stuff. In fact, it feels solid. So I don't know how that's even going to happen. Okay, the pollen filter housing is held on by 4 T20s. One down there, one there, one there, and then one tucked away in there. Just remove those 4 and this thing will pop out. Okay, for the next step, we're in the driver's side of the car. We need to get up under where the pedals are, and to do so I'm just going to remove this panel here just to give me a little bit of access, not only for filming but to actually see what I'm doing as well. So first remove this little cubby hole. Just use a pick and pull down on these little tabs. Pull down on them like so, and then the other one. This should just pop out like so. You can see like they're little tab thingies. There's a couple of screws as well, one either side, one here, and they're both T20s. And this thing just pulls off and down like that. Okay, so again, this is the brake pedal right here. There's a pin that goes through here that attaches the brake pedal to the master cylinder. There's a little clip on this side, and then the pin just pushes out to the right. So it's going to be tricky to film, but I'm going to try my best. You see this little clip here that spins? Well, this needs to come off, and it's kind of like a, I'll show you once it gets off, but there you go. And then that should allow you can see the pin right here, just to push that pin out to the right. You can see it come out the other side. And there it goes. That's what it looks like. It's a little pin with a little groove so that clip can go in it. Okay, so once the pin is out and the spring is off the back of the pedal, all you need is a 13mm socket. I've got a little sort of swivel ratchet here because it makes it a little bit easier. And there's a bolt here and a bolt the other side. This will pull away from the brake servo, and then we can get the brake servo off separately. to let you know, I actually had to use a ratchet spanner on the right hand side bolt because access is a little bit difficult in here. There's not a lot of room to get a socket in there. So I used a ratchet spanner on that side and a ratchet the other side, and now that both the nuts are off, this should pull out of there, which it does, like so. Now we have to be careful with these lines because these brake lines are hard brake lines, so we don't want to bend them too much, but if we take them out of their holders in there, we then get some wiggle room. Now you might find it difficult to pull this away with the clutch line still attached, which is here, the grey one. So I'm going to pull that off, and that might give us a bit more access to sort of pull it this way. You are going to lose a bit of fluid, but... So I've gone ahead and removed my clutch line, which is this grey one, which attaches to the side of the master cylinder. As many of you know, this engine is coming out at some point soon, so I'm not worried about having to bleed the clutch or anything like that, because it's all going to be done. Whereas you, if you're not bleeding your clutch, or you don't want to bleed your clutch, you might have to do it with that in place and just sort of work around it. But that now just leaves us with this guy to bring out, which is the brake booster. There's a plastic pipe that goes into it here, which we need to pull out. It's sort of just like a rubber grommet. It's a little bit tough to get out, or I've known them to be tough in the past, but you just kind of have to pull on it or pry on it, and this will pull out. So I just gave it a good tug, and as you can see, it's just sort of pushed in there, goes in that rubber hole, and it comes out like that. And then I'm just going to push it through the firewall and just sit it about there like that, so it's out the way. So the last three bolts that hold the brake servo in are up there, but to get better access to one of them, at least the bottom one, we're actually going to remove the accelerator pedal, which is this one here with the big sort of chunky wiring on it. There's three 10mm bolts. There's one here, and then there's two the other side. Then there's a wiring clip as well, which is here, which I'll just pull off. Just pull it out like that, and that pops off. Take these three bolts off, the whole pedal will come off, and then we'll get better access to the other ones. So with the accelerator pedal out of the way, we can now at least see two of our bolts. There's one there, and there's another. They're 13mm. And then the other one is on the other side, which is still a little bit difficult to get to. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's up the left-hand side. So we've just got to remove those three. I just want to point out that when doing this job, it really does help to have the right tools. That third bolt on the left is really, really awkward to get to. I had to use a 1/4 inch 13mm swivel, a swivel extension, and a little sort of ratchet to get in there with. As you'll find out if you do this yourself, it's really tricky, that third one up in the left hand side, but they're all out, and we should now be able to pull that brake servo all the way through. Right, this thing should now pull out, unless they've sealed it in, which is a good chance. Yeah, feels like they've sealed that in because we've released all the bolts. But when they reinstalled this, when they did this whole mess here, they must have sealed this up just in case it's leaked. So I'm going to need to get a pry bar and pry that out. Okay, so the brake servo is finally out. As you can see, someone's had a rather fun time putting some sealant on this. They've sealed all around there, all around the gasket, and then for some reason all over the back of it as well. I'll give you a better view of actually in here. So as you can see, someone has absolutely caked this in stuff. Whatever they decided to use, it's absolutely caked in it. Look at that big old chunk I just pulled off. Disgusting. So I'm now going to have to spend the next hour or two getting rid of all this. Now I'll insert a picture, if you're doing this for the first time, I'll insert a picture of what yours should look like. unless someone's been in it like they have mine, and in case it will look something like this. Unless they've done a neater job, it might look a little bit better. But I'm going to scrape as much of this off as I can, and then I'm going to reseal it myself. See, now the trouble is, whoever did this has sealed it whilst there's still moisture inside there, because it hasn't stuck at all, as you can see. And you can see the original stuff under it. That's where I just pulled it off. You can see the crack there. So water is still going to get inside there. You can see how wet it is here. There's moisture everywhere down there. So that is no good. When you do this, once I've peeled all this off, I'm going to have to clean all the area and make sure it's completely dry before I put any more in, because this is exactly what happens. If you put it in while the surface is wet, it doesn't stick, and then you have this issue. So I'm going to carry on, take the rest of this off, and then I'll come back to you when I'm done, because this is just going to be boring to watch. Okay, so I've been digging in here for about 20 minutes now. Got the majority of the stuff out. Now, I know it still looks a mess. All around here is a mess. Down the bottom is a mess. I'm going to clean it up, but I'm not going to be able to get every single bit of this stuff off. You don't really see under here anyway, with all this sort of plastic trim and stuff over here. You don't really see it, so I'm not too worried about it. All I wanted to do was get to the main seal, which is this part here that goes all the way around. Yours will look like something like that. You see the cracks in it there, there. It'll look like that, but all the way around. You can see the top section. So I've got all the stuff off it. Now I'm going to get the hose and give this a really good wash, degrease it, get all the dirt off it, so that when I put the new silicone on, it doesn't just peel off like that other stuff did. I want it to really stick. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to get out the rest of this silicone here. I'm going to use a pick and pick all that out, so that when I put my new stuff on, it goes right in the seam, and we don't have any issues. So to give mine a clean, I'm just going to use some of this stuff, which is like a engine degreaser. It's called gunk, but I'm just going to spray that everywhere, let it soak in. I'm also going to just go ahead and use a paintbrush just to agitate the gunk a little bit, just clean it all up. And once you're happy with how clean it is, just go ahead and rinse it off with a hose. Then you're going to have to find some way of drying it. I usually use like a heat gun or a hairdryer or something like that, but if you want to just wait, depending what the weather's like, it will dry on its own over time. Use some tissues to help speed up the process of drying it. But just try and get it as clean as you can, and then make sure it's absolutely bone dry before you apply any more silicone. Okay, so I think it goes without saying that when you're using the hose, you do have a hole going through to your footwell, so do be careful. I'm going to go around the hole and hopefully not get too much in there, but I'm going to be drying it out anyway, so it's not too much of an issue. So I'm just going to hose this off. As you can see, we're now all nice and clean, still wet, but nice and clean, no more dirt anywhere, which is exactly what we want. So I'm going to dry it off with some tissue, and then I'm going to hit this with like a heat gun or something for a little while, and just completely dry it off. This is currently the situation. I've just now rigged up an extension cord, and I've got my shed heater here, which is like a fan heater. Point it down in there. That should get nice and warm. I'll leave that to dry for about half an hour. I'll go get myself a cup of tea, and then we'll come back, and hopefully this will be dry enough for me to put in the new silicone. So I've now been drying the seal for about sort of 20 minutes. I'm happy that all the water is out. So the next step is to go ahead and seal this up with the sealant, and then we can start putting everything back together again. So this is the stuff that I've chosen to use. It's just general purpose silicone, black, doesn't matter about the colour. But it's the sort of stuff you put around windows. You could probably even use it in the bathroom if you wanted to. But any sort of silicone is absolutely fine. So I'm going to use this. Obviously you're going to need a caulking gun, and we're just going to apply a nice liberal amount around where that seal is and get it all nice and watertight. So there's a nice generous bead going around, all the way around it, if you can see. And that's a little bit hard to see in here, it's losing a bit of light today, but I've got a bead going all the way around. So what I like to do now is I like to go around my finger, it's a little bit messy, and just sort of smear it in. Okay, so it's now the next day, time to put everything back together. I actually lost light yesterday. I was about to start putting everything back together, then it just got absolutely pitch black all of a sudden, so I couldn't finish off yesterday, so I figured I'd wait till today and then we can just put everything back together. So the sealant we put in yesterday is dry, I'll show you that. Now we have to seal the brake servo to put it back in, which is this. You can see someone's already done a similar thing before, and we're just going to go put some more sealant over the top of that. When I was telling you how to take this off, I told you there was 3 bolts when there's actually just 2. You can see them there. The third one is for some sort of bracket under there, so don't worry about the right hand top one. So as you can see, our silicone is all dry now, so I can touch it, and it's gone all rubbery, which is great. I'm just double checking everything, making sure that I didn't miss any, but everything looks quite good. It did rain last night, so you can see all the water, but I covered this up so none got in there. So we're going to seal around this, but I'm probably going to do it on the actual servo itself. Seal around the servo, put it back in, bolt it back up, and then we'll put the rest of the stuff back together. So when you're reinserting this, just make sure that the hole for the vacuum, which is on there, is on the right hand side. The writing on the actual thing itself should be sort of normal way up. That's how you know you're doing it right. And then just line up the holes. Like so. Push it down. Can put the bolts on from the other side. Okay, those 3 nuts are back on. This is the one that you don't actually have to remove. This one here, don't have to remove that one. Just this one and the one that's up on the left hand side, which is really hard to see. So make sure that the pedal is back in line with this piece of metal that the pin's going to go back through. Make sure that this is sitting on the pedal alright. Next thing to do is to put our pin in and put our clip back on to hold the pin in place. This clip should just slide on the pin like so. And that's that reinstalled. Now, if you ended up taking this spring clip off, now's a good time to do that as well. Just bring it around the back, and back on the pedal like so, just sort of clips around it. And now we can go ahead and reinstall our accelerator pedal. I've got 3 bolts that go in, all 10mm, which are just down here. I do apologise for the filming in this area, but it's just so difficult to get anything in here. I can't even really show you this, but it's quite self-explanatory. Just going to line up with the holes. There's 3 sort of studs that stick out. I'm just going to put it on like that, and then stick the 3 bolts back on. Don't forget the electrical connector as well on the accelerator pedal. You just push it on and then push this red clip in. Like so. And that is essentially job done in here. Just got to put our plastic panels back, but I'm not going to bother doing that right now because I'm going to need to come back in here at some point. So that's it for in here, completely done. Okay, so we're back in the engine bay. We can start putting this back together. First thing I'm going to put in is just this vacuum hose. Just goes in the hole, if you remember. Quite tricky to get in there. Takes a bit of force, but there we go, that's that. Had to put the camera down to use 2 hands, but that's in. So we can then go ahead and reinstall our master cylinder. Just need to put it back over. Move some of this stuff out of the way. Just reinsert it back into the and just got our 2 13mm nuts, put them on. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to install is the wiper motor and the mechanism. This is just held in by 2 8mm, if you remember. Then it just sits on these 2 mounts, like so. Don't forget to plug it in with the wiring connector as well. We've then got our washer bottle that can go back in. Just move the pump out of the way. Just slide it in and just push the pump back in where it should be in that hole, like so. Next up to be installed is the pollen filter. And then these 4 screws, which are T25s. Okay, so now it's time to put all the trim pieces back on. I'm going to start with the left-hand side, which is the driver's side. Put this bit on first. Don't forget to put your washer jets back in, into the little holes before you fit them, because I've done that before and it's rather annoying to take it all back off again. So I'm going to put my washer jet in first thing I do, like so. And then you can go ahead and get it in position. One piece on. This bigger piece on the passenger side can be a little bit more tricky. If you want a tip of putting it back on, make sure this groove along here, you see that? That sort of slots onto the bottom of the windscreen. So just make, if you get that on first, the rest should just slot into place, hopefully. Okay, so that's all the plastic trim back in place, as you can see. This bit's a little bit tricky because they overlap, so you have to sort of push that one in there. It's all in place. Now I'm just going to get a screw for that side. Get a screw for that side, then I'm going to try and find one that'll fit in here as well, so I get it all secure. Then I just put the wiring on top of there. The battery wiring just sits in there and sort of just clips on these little clips. Now I know I said at the start of this video that I was going to show you how to do both sides, driver and passenger, but I just now remembered that later on in this process of doing this whole engine conversion, I'm going to have to get into my passenger side. The BCM module and all the wiring has to come out, so if I seal it up now, I'm not going to be able to get into it, or I will, but it'll be a lot more difficult. And I've done it previously on my videos, so if you go back and look at my project SXI, I'll link it in the description. You can see how to do the passenger side, and there's also other videos on how to do this exact thing on YouTube already, so just search for someone else's video if you can't find it on mine. But that's how to do the driver's side. I hope that was detailed enough for you to follow. It's really hard to sort of film in the footwell of the car, so I apologise if the footage didn't come out too great for that, but I hope you got the gist. All that's left to do now is to put the windscreen wipers on, but I'm not going to tell you how to do that. That's fairly simple. You put them on, just make sure they line up with the window. I'm lucky enough to still have marks on my windscreen where mine sit, because the dirt's sort of built up there. But if you haven't, just make sure they sit within the black area. There's like a black strip that goes along the bottom. Just make sure that they sort of sit in that somewhere. Put the bolts on, tighten them up, and you are away. So now that this is done, I can actually get on with doing the engine stuff. So that is going to be in the next video. I'm going to start stripping this engine out, get as much out as I possibly can. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe for the future videos, because now they're going to start getting a little bit more interesting, and I'll see you in the next one.